I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey. You know that moment in January where you promise yourself this term, it's going to be different. This year, it's going to be different. Mornings will be smoother, kids calmer, everyone out the door by 8:30. But by week 2, you're already back to rushing, shouting, and feeling guilty. New year, new me energy smacks against I just want a nap reality. Sound familiar? That's where a lot of children and adults find themselves every single January. And if your child is neurodivergent, has ADHD, or struggles with anxiety or other emotional turbulences, that January reset, that pressure that we put on January 1st to start fresh can feel more like being dropped into a bucket of cold water. Shocking to the system. I know this not only from a personal experience, but also because I've worked with hundreds of families who start January with the best intentions, but they forget routines need regulation, not pressure. So amped up today. So today what I want to do is rebuild January in a way that actually works, both for an ADHD, neurodivergent, or anxious brain, or everyone in between. Calmer, kinder, but still structured. Speaking of structured, here is what we're going to cover in today's episode. First, I'm going to share why most January routines fail, the science of why our brains actually reject fresh starts. Yes, they reject it. So why do we still stick with New Year's resolutions? Well, here's how we can do it a little bit more intentionally. Then we're going to walk through 3 realistic reset tools that work with ADHD and anxious wiring. And if you stick with me until the very end, which I hope you do, I've got one final support tip to set your year up for success. My goal is at the end of this episode, you're going to be able to use these skills before school, after work, or even mid-meltdown. The plan is to provide you something that you could start now in December to prepare for that January refresh. All right, it's my favorite time. Let's grab our coffee and let's get into it. If you've ever looked at a new term or a new start or even the beginning of the month, like I love those fresh start moments. But if you've ever looked at them and thought, how do I help my child start again without overwhelm? Especially if there's already mixed feelings about school, about routine, about that start. What I want you to do is take a second to follow the Mindful Toolbox Podcast or hit subscribe if you're watching us over on YouTube. Every episode is a blend of my favorite things of neuroscience, calm, practical strategy, and realistic parenting. And it's grounded both in the research and the work that I've been doing for over a decade in supporting families just like yours to find a little bit of extra calm. Now that you've subscribed and you're going to get access to all of our future episodes, let's dive into why January feels so hard even when we want it to feel fresh. Here's something that I've realized when I was coaching nearly every family. January isn't just about a fresh start. It's about re-entry shock. During the break, it's a well-deserved break. Our children's nervous system, it finally downshifts, right? The cortisols drop. Sleep changes, dopamine patterns rewire around pleasure and rest. Then school returns. We have early alarms, potentially long days, long commutes. Social load is way higher. There's academic pressure thrown in. It's a pretty risky cocktail, especially if we add in a brain that interprets this as a threat spike, not a gentle reintegration to school. Now, one of my favorite podcast hosts is Dr. Andrew Huberman. He was doing work on dopamine recalibration.
How much dopamine was in our system a few minutes ago, that dictates your so-called quality of life and your desire to pursue things. This is important. Your experience of life and your level of motivation and drive depends on how much dopamine you have relative to your recent experience. This is why when you repeatedly engage in something that you enjoy, your threshold for enjoyment goes up and up and up. If you understand that process, you will be in a terrific position to modulate and control your own dopamine release for optimal motivation and drive.
Now, this was especially interesting, both from a professional standpoint for me, but also a personal standpoint as well. I'm going to sum it up for us. Dr. Andrew Huberman suggests that after prolonged periods of rest or unstructured time, the brain's motivation circuits need gradual exposure to effort. It doesn't need an abrupt change. So that means a rigid back-to-school schedule can actually backfire for ADHD or anxious students. If your January mornings are usually full of resistance, we need to remember that it's not defiance. What's happening here is it's a nervous system saying, we haven't warmed up yet. How do you expect me to go from 0 to 100 with less than a day's notice? And the same happens when we look to Monday as that new fresh start, or January 1st as that arbitrary day to get things done. We seem to fizzle out because we feel a shock to the new habit. So the signs of the reset, we need predictive regulation in action. Lisa Feldman Barrett shared how the brain predicts what emotion we are going to need based on previous memories. This is some of the most empowering information that we have today, that the brain doesn't react, it predicts. So we can use that to our benefit. In 2025, her team added new data that shows that emotional prediction errors spike after holidays or breaks. That makes sense, right? If your child goes into a disobedient or a pushback phase right after the holidays, it's because the brain expects safety and novelty based on what they got through the holidays, but then all of a sudden it suddenly meets a wall and a need for performance. Why are we talking about this today? I don't want you to start January behind. I want you to know this is coming so we can prepare for it. Our goal in January isn't now to enforce routines, it's to retain the prediction. So if the prediction is safety and novelty, then every small act of predictability, the same breakfast mug that's a little bit novel, the same morning playlist, the same check-in questions, all of those things combined signals this is safe, you've done this before, and it creates less of an obstruction, less of a jump between holiday mode and academic term time mode. Our nervous system doesn't care if it's a Monday, a Wednesday, January 1st, November 1st, it doesn't care about any of that. It cares about safety, and safety comes with what is familiar. This doesn't mean we can't add in new things. We should be creating a little bit of tension. We should be building resilience to go outside comfort zones, but we need to do it in a way that doesn't shock the system. If this already feels like a deep exhale, please save this episode or send it to a friend. If mornings or transitions are the hardest part, I've linked my emotional regulation toolbox guide in the show notes, whether you're listening on your favorite podcast player or you're watching us over on YouTube. They are in the show notes below. It's free and packed with visuals and scripts that help you to start small. Okay, so this is how we get practical. We're going to open up that toolbox and add 3 tools for a gentle January reset. Tool number 1, the micro morning reset. I use micro a lot because we want the small shifts, small movements. We're going to forget that 6 a.m. wake up and military schedule. This is not about overhauling a 9 a.m. wake up to a 6 a.m. It's about anchoring. Pick one sensory anchor. Sensory because it helps our body switch online, whether it's music, light, scent, all of those things combined, or just one, is going to help us create a shift that is novel, and that's what we're looking for. If we back this up even further, Huberman's circadian research shows early light and small movement patterns, even a 2-minute stretch by a window, all of that resets cortisol rhythms and stabilizes dopamine for the day. This is incredibly important for our dopamine searching individuals, the brains that really look for that dopamine spike. Help them to regulate everything by doing a little bit of circadian exposure. Maybe it's opening up the curtains, making tea, and naming one small, easy win that they can do that day. Or even 3 big belly breaths. You know, the one that makes your belly pop out like you're Santa Claus? 3 big, deep belly breaths before opening that school bag. That's it. The nervous system needs repetition, not reinvention. We can't go from holiday mode and flick a switch into term time mode. That's where the pushback comes from. So if we can start building in these repetitive intentions while they're on holiday mode, it acts as a small anchor that's going to build big regulation later. Remember, the brain wants novelty and safety. If we bring this in as something that's safe and predictable, it's going to feel comfortable because it's also exciting and novel. Tool number 2, let's preview before pressure. It's probably one of my favorite ones, especially as someone who grew up anxious. A preview was my safe space. It was my way of looking ahead, but not too far ahead. Before the term restarts, create a micro preview. It's like a 15-second mental walkthrough that pre-wires calm. That's the goal. It's not just to get into the what ifs. It's to suggest this is what you can expect. These 3 things. It's quick. This models Lisa Feldman Barrett's predictive model that shows that short simulation rituals, so where we go through the process of what's to come, even if it's verbal ones, lowers anticipatory anxiety. We can say tomorrow morning, we're going to wake up at 7:30, have breakfast, and drive to school. And then we link it to before holiday, same as before December break. You're going to help the brain update its safety forecast. Instead of them waking up and it's 9 a.m. and they get to sit in their PJs until noon and they get to watch TV, instead of doing that and it becoming a shock because they forgot, we're going to give them a pre-warning. We're going to update that safety forecast before the stress hits. For teens, you can do this in a text or a voice note. It works the same. And if we're thinking about how this could relate to us as adults, if we know that we want to start something on Monday, it's looking on Sunday to see what's coming. It's reminding ourselves, oh yeah, I said I wanted to go to the gym before I walk the dog, and getting things ready. Tool number 3, we're looking for a body sync reset. This is the 3-minute routine I promised at the start, and I swear it is gold. It is something that all of our children do when we start working together, and it is the through line that helps them navigate challenges in the future. When your child hits the inevitable January wall, emotionally or cognitively, both are possible. We need to help them sync their body budget. If it's low, we can't pull from it. So we're going to help add into that body budget. Look for patterned movements, specifically 60 seconds. That's our regulate, relate, reason, ladder. Walk, drum, squeeze a stress ball, cross body tap, march in space, do jumping jacks, air squats, anything that gets their body moving. Then breathe a specific rhythm. 60 seconds, 4 in, 6 out. A slow exhale signals safety to our body. 4 in, 6 out. Make it a game. The last thing we're going to do is a micro engagement. This is where we're going to start moving towards activity. Ask a simple sensory question. What color can you see the most right now? Or what sound is closest. We want them to get in tune with their body. So something that's going to get them looking around the room for you don't look for sounds. They could, but to look for color or shape or lines or listen to specific sound. This combination draws from Bruce Perry's 2025 Child Trauma Academy update. I've meshed it together with Huberman's work on interoception. So together, their job is to restore that prefrontal cortex. Remember, wise owl that sits on top of the hand? The prefrontal cortex is the one that reasons. We want to make sure that we relax it as quick as possible so that it's calm and reassured. And the reason we do this is because we can't tuck a brain into calm. The only way we can get there is to rhythm it. And this is fundamentally true for all brains. So I mentioned earlier that I work with many families, and I want to share with you one of my favorite student stories. It's from a year 8 boy. We're going to call him Theo. After every single holiday or break, his return to school was explosive. Shouting, refusal, tears. His mom once said, it's like he's allergic to school. But a couple weeks in, it's like he's allergic to home. I just don't get it. Has this ever happened to you where it's like that first couple of weeks, they're absolutely digging their heels, but then they don't want to come home? When we mapped his week, we realized he wasn't allergic. He was under-rehearsed, not prepared for transitions. Change and transitions can be really difficult. So we built a pre-return ritual. One walk to school the week before term started. No pressure to go in. We literally just walk the same walk. And during that time, we start observing things have changed while we haven't walked it. Same breakfast music every morning, and he gets to choose it. Sometimes he was actually making his new term playlist over the holiday. We came up with one co-regulation mantra. We're not rushing, we're just rehearsing. So when we got up and we had breakfast and we had a walk to school, we weren't doing it in that frenzied way that would cause stress to spike. By the second week of term, the morning meltdowns had vanished. He wasn't cured because there was nothing broken. He wasn't allergic to anything. His brain was now predictively calm. The brain does not react, it predicts. So let's give it small sections that help it to create a new prediction that's going to serve us. Okay, how can we recap here then? This is what I'm going to invite for your January reset. The mindful way. First, we regulate. Small sensory anchors before we give demands. Second, we preview the day. So let's help the brain predict calm. Third, we're going to sink into that body. We need rhythm, breath, and sensory grounding. And because you've listened to the end, you can see this isn't about fixing routines, getting the perfect planner, or organizing ourselves. It's about giving the brain what it needs to feel ready for change. If this episode helped you exhale, have your shoulders away from your ears a little, make you feel like you're not going on this journey alone, even just a little bit, please share it with a parent who needs that same relief. If your child is finding school transitions hard, grab our regulation toolbox down below. You can either click the link in the show notes or comment emotional regulation toolbox, and I will make sure to send it over to you. It's going to be built on the same science that we've talked about today, and it's going to walk you step by step through gentle regulation strategies that will create a world of difference. I promise this is something that is really going to make you feel like you're looking at something night and day. All of the links are below. I hope this is setting you up for an incredible 2026. Thank you so much for being here at the start of our journey, which started in May 2025. I'm so excited. This has been an incredible start. The community we've connected with, I'm so excited for. Please stay tuned for our own February reintegration. We'll see you very soon. Happy New Year. Well done. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, thank you for your patience.